Erev Tov, good evening, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We rejoice that we're able to celebrate Shabbat, this not quite second to last Shabbat before Pesach, this Shabbat Par'ah, this time for us to be together, to embrace one another, even though we are apart, a chance for us to leave behind the week that was and embrace one holy, perfect moment of Shabbat, as Ruth Bryn writes. We are also blessed to have Riley Gnaz, our bat mitzvah, here with us, with her family, to help us celebrate for this Shabbat weekend. We begin by celebrating our togetherness as we turn to page 10 and join in singing Hine Ma Tov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. How good it is, how sweet it is that we can be together, whether you have a paper copy of Mishkan Tefillah, the flip book, the Kindle edition, or you just happen to have the book memorized. Let's join together.
Hine ma tov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Tov, hine ma tov, yararai, yararararararai, hine ma tov, yararai, yararararararai, hine ma tov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad, hine ma tov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad.
And on page 12, we join in singing Psalm 95, Lechu Neranana.
Lechu neranana, lechu neranana, lechu neranana, Adonai. Lechu neranana, lechu neranana, lechu neranana, Adonai. Naria, naria, litzur yishenu, nekad machanav b'todah. Naria, naria, litzur yishenu, bizmira naria lo. Lechu neranana, lechu neranana, lechu neranana, Adonai. Lechu neranana, lechu neranana, lechu neranana, Adonai.
We turn in our Sidurim to pages 2 and 3 for the blessing of our Sabbath lights. We welcome up Riley Gnaz to lead us in that blessing, the English on page 3, the Hebrew on page 2. And if you have not yet blessed your own Shabbat candles, if you waited till this moment so that we could do so together, I invite you to light your candles so we can join in the blessing together.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Riley, if you'd lead us into Hebrew too, that'd be
sorry.
great.
Do you want me to chant it or read it?
Just read it, thank you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu l'chad l'kner shel Shabbat.
And why don't you read the English too?
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the lights of Shabbat.
And we join together.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu להדליק
Asher Koach, thank you, Riley, and looking forward to celebrating tomorrow. We continue with the singing of Lecha Dodi, welcoming Shabbat like a bride, like a queen. The verses are on pages 20 and 21, verses 1, 2, 5, and 9 of that song, remembering to rise and greet the Sabbath bride on the last verse. Lecha Dodi is on page 20.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor zachor dibur echad, ishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shemo tiferet v'litila. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, yihi bekoch haveracha, mehirosh mikadam nesuacha, sov ma'aseh b'machshava tchila. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, toreri, kiva orech umiori, uri shivdaveri, kavod Adonai halayich nigla. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'tzola, tochel v'nei am sagula. Boi chala, Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela.
We may be seated. And even as we welcome Shabbat into our lives, we are mindful of those in our inner circle, in our community, whom we welcome in, who are in mourning, who are grieving on this Shabbat. And so we extend our condolences to Mark and Susan Detweiler on the passing of Mark's mother, Irene, to the family of Renee Churtell, especially her sons, Mark and Stuart. And while we have not buried Howard Sands yet, we will do so on Sunday. We extend our condolences to Michelle and to Deb and Evan and their children, Eva and Elisa, to all of them. Hamakom yinechem etchem, may the one who is a source of peace grant you peace and comfort in the days ahead. At the bottom of 27, page 27, entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time, even at unlikely times and through unlikely places. There is no place on earth without the presence. Chatzi Kaddish is on the facing page. Amen.
Be'avad yivrach yirutei v'yalich machutei yechon u'yomechon u'chayedecho beit Yisrael v'agana u'vizman karim ve'yiveru Amen. Yeheshmei Rabbani Barach Le'olam u'lam me'almayah Yitbarach Yishabach Yitpa'al Yitramam Yitnaseh
Physically, spiritually, we rise for the Baruch Hu. On page 30, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma potech sha'arim, uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umisader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtsono, borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai tzavaot shamo, el chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv, aravim. Bottom of page 33. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works, and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Let's be seated and we'll continue with the chanting of the Ve'ahavta on page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בהם, ושבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמן.
On page 41, sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Mi Chamocha is on page 40.
Ya baba bim bada baba, ya baba bim bam, ya baba bim bada baba, ya baba bim bam, ay 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 ay, ya baba bim bam, ay 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 ay, ya baba bim bam. Mi chamocha, my Adonai, mi chamocha. ba 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 bim bum. Ya ba ba bim ba da ba. Ya ba 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 bim bum. Ay 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 ay. Ya ba 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 bim bum. Ay 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 ay. Ya ba ba bim bum. V'ne'emar ki para Adonai et Yaakov v'ge'alo miyad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai
We turn to page 42 and we give thanks for the night and its rest and the promise of peace that it brings. Page 44.
V'shamru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat, na'asu et ha-Shabbat, lidonotam v'ridonam. V'shamru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat, na'asu et ha-Shabbat, lidonotam v'ridonam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, lidonotam v'ridonam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, asa Adonai et hashamayim et haaretz. V'shamru b'nei Israel et לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Physically, spiritually, we rise for the Amidah, Adonai Sfatai on 46, Avot V'Imahot on 48.
Adonai Sifatai Tiftach Ufi Agidailatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Goel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zacher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevi Geula livnei b'neihem, L'man Shema b'yava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah Rav le'Hoshia, Mafshiv haruach u'marid hagashem, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Samech naflim verafei cholim, U'matir asurim, U'mekayim emunato l'shenei afar, Michamocha ba'givurot, U'midam elach, Melech memit u'mechayeh, U'matzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol. Atah kadosh u'shimcha kadosh, U'kdoshim b'chol yom yahlelucha selah, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
We may be seated. And we'll continue at the bottom of page 55. Page 55. Disturb us, Adonai. Ruffle us from our complacency. Make us dissatisfied with the peace of ignorance, the quietude which arises from a shunning of the horror, the defeat, the bitterness and the poverty, physical and spiritual, of humans. Shock us, Adonai. Deny to us the false Shabbat, which gives us the delusions of satisfaction amid a world of war and hatred. Wake us, O God, and shake us from the sweet and sad poignancies rendered by half-forgotten melodies and rubric prayers of yesteryears. Make us know that the border of the sanctuary is not the border of living, and the walls of your temples are not shelters from the winds of truth, justice, and reality. Disturb us, O God, and vex us. Let not your Shabbat be a day of torpor and slumber. Let it be a time to be stirred and spurred to action. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu be'amcha Yisrael, u'tefilatam bi'ahava tekabel, u'tehi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. Baruch atah Adonai, shotcha levadcha b'yir'ah na'avod. Bottom of 59. When we behold your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and stars that you set in place, what are we humans that you are mindful of us? We mortals that you take note of us. You made us little less than divine, adorned us with glory and majesty. You gave us dominion over your handiwork, laying the world at our feet. How majestic is your name throughout the earth. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki Adon Melech Adon V'chol HaShalom. Ki Adon Melech Adon V'chol HaShalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. B'tov b'einecha livarech et Amcha Yisrael. B'va'id u'b'chosha b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
We take time now in our service to think of those who are in need of wholeness and healing and peace. We think of all those suffering from this pandemic, all of their caregivers and the medical professionals fighting against it. We think of all those suffering from the pandemic of injustice, and this week especially all of our Asian American and Pacific Islander brothers and sisters who are hurting all this year, but especially right now. We think of those in our own lives who are in need of healing. And I would ask on Facebook, on YouTube, if you have names of those you love who are in need of healing and wish to share them by placing them in the chat, in the comments, as part of this service, I invite you to do so. As together we pray for healing, O hear my prayer. O hear my prayer.
Mi Shabbat Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak veYaakov. Mi Shabbat Imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, v'Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Mi Shabbat Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak veYaakov. Mi Shabbat Imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, v'Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear
Physically, spiritually, we rise for our Seder Kriyat HaTorah.
על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, שלושה דברים לעולם העולם האמת. על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים לעולם
We may be seated, and we can focus our attention on Torah, on the first parsha in the book of Leviticus, in the book Vayikra, Parashat Vayikra. Riley is going to be reading tomorrow from chapter 1 of Leviticus. We're going to be focused on chapter 5. Chapter 5 beginning with verse 1. That will also be the focus of Eliana Hall, our Director of Lifelong Learning, their Torah study tomorrow morning. So you'll get to explore that text a little further. But again, Leviticus chapter 5, beginning with verse 1. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Amen. So, now that we're in Leviticus, let's talk about sin and guilt, everyone's favorite topics. Actually, I would suggest that they are often our favorite topics as long as we're talking about someone else. Leviticus is perhaps unfairly famous for being focused on the questions of guilt and sin, except that's not quite right. It's not that the text is especially interested in our errors of judgment, the failure of the individual, as if to dismiss the individual forever as beyond the pale. Rather, the text of Leviticus seems to seek to actually normalize error. To normalize error. We are, after all, only human, with all of our foibles and our frailties. Leviticus then seeks to explore methods through which that human error that all of us are going to commit can be corrected. The text, in its descriptions of sacrifices and offerings, is very much focused on the idea of restitution and reconciliation, and if I may be so bold, the idea of redemption. Or to put it in a different way, and to evoke my drash from last week and my teacher, Rabbi Shai Held, the question Leviticus seems to be trying to answer is how to reestablish order from the chaos of our actions and their consequences, to repair what has been broken. Which makes Leviticus chapter 5 especially interesting. In it, we have the description of various kinds of sin, or various kinds of error, if you prefer that term. Specifically, between people, bein adam lachaveiro, withholding testimony, touching something that renders you spiritually unfit, making an oath and not fulfilling it. There are no surprises here, right? But the word that is used to describe the person is really interesting. The word that the Torah uses in this is the word nephesh. The word nephesh. Now, those of you know, sometimes that word gets translated as soul. There's a band called Nefesh Mountain, which is we got to listen to them this past spring, which is sort of Jewish bluegrass soul music. Nefesh is probably better translated as breath, or if we wanted to get really accurate, throat. Over and over again, this word is going to be repeated. You're going to hear me say, ki hanefesh, 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 over and over again when describing the person. On top of that, the kicker for each of these sins is that the perpetrator has discovered his or her guilt. That is, it is as if they hadn't been aware that they had done anything wrong, and suddenly they realize what happened. So what's going on? Why are we continuously calling the person nefesh, and why the emphasis on one's guilt and just discovering it? The Or HaChaim, a Moroccan Jewish scholar of the late 17th century, has a really interesting take that I want to share with you. He imagines the nefesh as someone who has sinned before. More specifically, this nefesh, is someone who has committed that exact same chet, that exact same mistake before in the past. But now, this time, as that person is realizing their mistakes, they have an aha moment, realizing what they have done wrong, and now they seek to repent. They seek to make teshuvah, or if we prefer, they seek to repair what has been broken. It is, to use a metaphor preferred by Emmanuel Levinas, a moment where the person wakes up, as if out of a deep sleep, to what he or she is supposed to do and supposed to be in the world. Now, we know that this is better said than done. Boy, do we not like to admit when we have done the wrong thing. And there are so many reasons we don't want to admit it. Because we're embarrassed, we're ashamed, we're afraid of the consequences, because we don't recognize that version of ourselves who did the wrong thing. We want to distance ourselves from that version of ourselves. This text, however, insists, and I would say with love, that we own it. This text wants us to own our actions, our choices, including our mistakes, not to banish us into exile. These people are not cast out of the community, but rather so that we can fix what is broken, so we can make right what we have done wrong, to restore, to repair, to reconcile, to loosen the tightness of our throat, as it were, and breathe again. So long as we avoid responsibility, avoid consequences, we also avoid growth. We deny ourselves the opportunity to become better and allow our errors to have power over us. Allow our errors to define us. May we therefore allow ourselves those aha moments and allow ourselves to repair and discover who we are meant to be. Amen. We're still in Leviticus chapter 5, beginning with verse 1. But now we're going to actually get to read it. There we go. V'nefesh, ki techta v'sham'a kol ele v'hu ed o re'e o yad'a im lo yagid v'nasa avonoto. A person, if they have committed an error in judgment, if they have failed, because they have withheld testimony, they have heard something, seen something, could have acted as a witness and failed to do so, and therefore incurred guilt. O nefesh asher tig'a bechol davar tam'eh או בנבלת חיה טמאה, או בנבלת בהמה טמאה, או בנבלת שרץ טמא, ונעלם ממנו, והוא טמא ואשם. Or somebody who touches something that makes them ritually, spiritually unfit. It could be an animal of any kind, and they don't realize it. And then they discover that they are ritually unfit as a result. Or, ki yig'a b'tim'at adam lechol tim'ato asher yitma ba v'na'alem mimenu v'hu yad'a v'ashem. Or the person touches something from a person that makes them ritually unfit. Any of the kinds of things that from a person that might make them ritually unfit, and they somehow don't realize it, and then they discover they're ritually unfit, and realize their guilt. O nefesh ki tishva levita b'shfatayim lehara o lehatev lechol asher yitva ha'adam b'shva'a ve'na'alam mimenu v'hu yad'a v'ashem. Or somebody who makes a vow. It could be for good, it could be for bad, it doesn't matter. But they make a vow and then they forget about it and they don't do it. And they realize later that they didn't do it and therefore they have incurred guilt as a result. V'ashem le'achat me'ele. And if they incur guilt for any of these sorts of things, for anything like what just was described, v'hitvada asher chet aleha. They must confess their wrongdoing. They must admit that they have done wrong. V'hevi et ashmo l'Adonai. And they should bring forward, as a consequence of their actions for Adonai, al chatato, their chet offering, their sin offering, asher chet nekeva min hatson kishva o seirat izim lechatat. And they should bring as part of their sin offering a female from the herd, a goat, a sheep, to bring forward as their chatat offering, their sin offering. V'chiper alav hakohen mechatato. And the priest will make atonement for them on behalf of their error in judgment. With that, we rise for Hagbah and Glila, the raising up and dressing of our Sefer Torah, and we'll remain standing as we put our Torah away, and we'll remain standing after that for Aleinu L'Shabeach. On page 282 for Aleinu L'Shabeach.
Aleinu L'Shabeach Adon HaKol Latet Kedula V'yotzeh Breshit שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגאל עלינו ככל המונם. אנחנו הקוראים ומשחרים ומורדים, ולבני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We may be seated. And we turn to page 294. Page 294. Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai Nevarach. God gives, God takes away. Blessed be the name of God. If you are in the first 30 days of your mourning, the period of Shaloshim, wherever you are, I invite you to rise at this time. And if you are in the first year of your mourning, I invite you to rise. If you observe a yahrzeit, the anniversary of a loved one's passing on this Shabbat, I invite you to rise. And if it is your custom to remember those who have died from this pandemic, those who have died from injustice, the martyrs of our people, those who have died from every race and nation, sanctifying the divine name, I invite you to rise as we join in Mourner's Kaddish. Again, page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah.
Amen.
Bi'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei d'kudusha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shalom araba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. We remember Betty Hampson, Saul Levin, Renee Churtell, laid to rest just today, Irene Detweiler, Janice Antonoff, Ronald Cutler, Nathan Ebner, Estella Hillerson Frankel, David J. Freshman, Barbara Friedman, Jane Glassman, Jack Goldberg, Henry Kane, Isidore Kyle, Henry Martin, Rose Radney, Heidi Rogel, Ruth Rosenthal, Joel Michael Schaefer, Robert Schnittman, Ida Seiden, Harry Wolf. And I would ask if you have a name to add, to share it on YouTube, on Facebook, as we say for all of them, Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be a blessing. And we may be seated wherever we are. Again, we extend our condolences to Mark and Stuart, Renee Churtell's sons, to Mark and Susan Detweiler on the passing of Mark, your mother, Irene. And while we have not yet buried Howard, we extend our condolences to Michelle and her children and her grandchildren. Hamakom yenechem etchem, may the one who brings peace bring you peace. Mazal Tov again, Riley. We are so excited to celebrate with you tomorrow morning, to have you lead our service, to have you read from the Torah and share your Torah with us. So be able to celebrate with your family, be be able to celebrate with those who will be here and those who will be out there in the internet. Tomorrow morning, once again, our Director of Lifelong Learning, Eliana Hall, will be teaching Torah study, and followed by our service at 11 a.m. So much happening in the coming week, including our special program with the Friends of Ben Gurion University on Sunday, the special program that Eliana Hall is going to be running on making a wonderful Passover dessert, adult learning that is coming up, and of course our second night Zoom Seder this year, once again online, perhaps in hybrid form, but definitely online. I hope you will join us for any and all of those things. We are grateful to Jeff Margulies for running tech support this evening, grateful to Dennis Stewart, our music director, grateful to our cantor, who's going to lead us in our closing song. We're going to conclude with Ein Adir on page 328, otherwise known as Mipi-El. Let's join together. We'll see you in the Zone Egg. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.